6 o'clock. I'm calling to order this regular meeting of the City Council of the City of Bandera. All council members are present. City Administrator is present. The City Secretary is present. And our Marshal is present. We're at 511 Main Street. And it's Tuesday, September 7th, 2021. Item 2 on the agenda is the Invocation and Pledge of Allegiance. Will you lead us in prayer?
Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us all together this evening. We ask for your blessings upon the Bandera City Council, the residents. Lord, we'd ask that they make smart decisions that impact our city. Lord, we'd ask for your blessings upon our great state, also upon our great country, as we try to heal through these difficult times. Lord, we'd like to thank you for this glorious, beautiful day we've had today. Most of all, we'd like to thank you for your Son who died upon the cross for our many sins. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, folks. Have a seat. Bill, did anyone sign up to speak?
Did anybody want to speak that didn't sign out? No, but I do have one email that came in that I need to read.
Would you read that, please?
Sure. So this is from Laura Davenport. Dear Bandera City Council, when making your decision as to the maximum size of the bunkhouses, I would like to encourage you to make them 800 square feet instead of 600 square feet. The maximum size of the mini buildings is 16 by 50, which is 800 square feet. If you are going to make a place wheelchair accessible, it requires 6 feet to turn most wheelchairs around. Many of us who are considering building these structures will do so for aging parents who may be in a wheelchair. On most lots, this would still give ample distance from existing structures and would not require P&Z to have as many variances to consider. Thank you for your time. Sorry, that's the first time I read it.
Thank you.
That's it.
And thank you, Laura. Okay, item 4 is the consent agenda. Item A is approval of minutes from the July 12, 2021 meeting, the July 26, 2021 meeting, the August 3, 2021 public hearing and meeting, the August 17, 2021 meeting, the August 24, 2021 meeting and workshop. Council?
I'd like
Tony.
to not approve the consent agenda.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. Go ahead.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, Christine, discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed? Opposed. Okay, before we get into item 5,
Oh,
yes,
I have
ma'am.
another motion for that item. I have another motion for the item 4.
We have to take this into the regular agenda. While we're still the consent agenda, we cannot discuss this.
Oh, okay.
So
My
we'll
apologies.
take it to the regular agenda and I'll call them out and we can make our decisions as we go.
Gotcha. Thanks.
Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay. We're now into the regular agenda. Item 5, discussion of possible action on the following items. Number 1 will be the July 12, 2021 meeting. Tony?
Okay, we're gonna do each
Yes,
and every
ma'am.
one? Okay. Is that, because, all right, I'd like to make a motion to approve the July 12th, 2021 meeting with the edits as stated on your sheets that you've been provided.
Thank you, Tony. Do I have a second?
Second.
Christine, second. Discussion?
Yes.
Rebecca?
If it's going to be the same motion for each of these, can she just do it all of the minutes in one motion?
Do you want to amend your motion to include all the minutes?
With all the corrections?
I would like that because
Okay, thank you.
they're all stated. so-
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'd like to amend my motion to approve July 12th, July 26th, August 3rd, August 17th, August 24, and the workshop on 24 and the workshop on August 3rd to include the edits as provided in a separate sheet.
Thank you. Christine?
Yes, I'll second that.
Further discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you, council.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tony.
We'll move on to 5A, presentation and discussion pertaining to Bandera 2040 Comprehensive Master Plan and Development Codes, including lot sizes bunkhouses in the Master Thoroughfare and Street Network Plan. Matt Lewis is here with us from Simple City Design. Matt, take it away.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council, Matt Lewis with Simple City Design. We have been working very hard on your comprehensive master plan and development standards. We held the community roundup last week and it went very well. We rolled the plan out to the community and we're getting really good feedback. Tonight, we're before you all tonight to get policy direction on two items. The bunkhouse and the minimum lot sizes. Do you have the presentation, or do you want me to plug it in?
Yeah, I don't.
It wasn't part of the packet, but well, I can do it just without a presentation if you all would like. I mean, I have it. I can just roll through it. It's okay.
Is the presentation y'all did at the, is it online?
Yes,
Because
ma'am.
she's connected to the internet,
Which
she could pull it up.
presentation are you?
It was.
looking at?
I sent it over Friday, but or no, what was it? It was, Thursday. I'm almost for it. I don't remember what day. It was with you and Jill, but it's not a big deal. I can really just do it from this. It really is okay. The first question was regarding bunkhouses or backyard houses, and you all provided direction that you wanted us to explore these, and these may be the appropriate options. We've come back with a series of recommendations. The first recommendation was to allow bunkhouses not to exceed 600 square feet, and then be allowed in place type 2, 3, and 4, with provisions that the owner must live on site, and investment homes cannot be added, cannot add an additional structure. That was the provision into it. We heard from some of the community members that 600 square feet may be too small. We wanted to bring that back, and we agree. 800 is a really good number for a additional house. We, this is one of those arbitrary type of numbers, which we don't have many arbitrary numbers in the code, and that's why we seek policy direction when we start hitting arbitrary numbers. There's not a set definition of what the appropriate scale for an additional house is. And many times people may want to live in the back house and rent out their front house. I think the overall goal is to not dwarf the principal structure with the back house, and that was the intent with setting some size parameters on it. The other thing I think that is important to note is when we're working in place type 3, that's your residential lots. Most of the residential lots are about 8,000 square feet. They're a derivative of your town lots, and the town lots when it was originally platted were 8,000 square foot lots. With that being said, you have some very small lots throughout town as well that have been broken down. One of the smallest lots in place type 3 is 3,670 square feet, and it's about 43 feet wide. So that's one of your smaller houses. In place type 4, you have a house that is 15.5 feet wide, but it's got a long, deep lot. And in place type 5, you have a lot that is 640 square feet. That is the size of the lot, not the structure. I mean, the entire lot dimension. The building takes up almost 100% of it. It's 16 feet wide, 40 feet deep. So I'm just giving you a cross-section of your lot dimensions. The main place type that you would see this happen is in the residential character. It's someone that has a little bit of extra money or that needs generational housing or that wants to build a backyard unit. Maybe they want to rent for supplemental income. Maybe they want to have it as their family wants to live in it, whatever the case may be. That's where you would see it primarily. And so building on that, in place type 3, the build-to lines will range from 5 feet to no maximum, or maybe 60 feet. That's what we're finding as your patterns. So the closest house to the street in Bandera, in place type 3, is 5 feet from the street, from the property line. And we found some that are 65 feet setback where they have long, deep lots and they put it right in the middle of the lot. And so what we're trying to do is get those lot characteristics to be allowed, but still have the availability where they could have a secondary structure in the back. And so with that, there are another number that I think is important is the lot coverage, or the building line of coverage at the lot. I think y'all are going to get this pulled up, hopefully. There's a slide in here that I wanted to talk off of. It just shows the lot that looks like this, if y'all recall.
I've got it now here.
Oh, awesome. Thank you, Jill. Yes, ma'am. This slide?
Yeah, it's that third one, Jill.
Yes. Okay, here we go. So this will be a little bit more, now that I'm talking numbers. So the closest house in place type 3 is 5 feet from the street edge. And so your public realm and your private realm, where the right-of-way stops and the house starts on the private side, that's your frontage line. So you have a public frontage, which is your right-of-way, and you have a private frontage, which is your private property, if you will. The build-to line is how far or close the building can go to the public and private frontage. It varies in character area. So like, for example, in downtown, they're all zero. Those buildings are zero lot, they're exactly at the frontage line. Well, in the residential areas, you don't see that often. Generally, they're further back. And so the reason that that's important is to maintain the character of the community. You don't want to start infiltrating patterns that aren't present currently, and that's why we think these numbers are important. Furthermore, we're not finding any lots in town that are paving over more than 40% of the lot coverage. So buildable area on your lot, we're recommending 40% coverage, means your house and your flat work. We don't see residential lots that are taking 80% of their lot coverage. And so we want to be mindful of that. Once you all give us a number, we're going to go and model this. So if we get 800, we're going to go back and model and say, okay, well that's going to put you at 39% coverage at a total, and we may need to up that 40 to 50% coverage so that you're not creating non-conformities for people that are bumping up against 40% lot coverage. We're trying to make it where you don't have a bunch of non-conformities, and that people have a little bit of room to build a shed, build a chicken coop, or whatever the case may be, other impervious items on their lot. But to not overwhelm the infrastructure or the lot coverage that changes that rural feel. That's why these numbers are important. Yes, ma'am.
Question, can you elaborate a little bit more on what will contribute towards the lot coverage? Would that include patios and swimming pools and everything but dirt? Sidewalks?
Anything that
Gravel.
is impervious generally. And the reason is that, to prevent small area flooding. If you have 1 or 2 lots that are upstream from someone that go 100% impervious cover, the water sheet flows and it has a direct point of discharge where it hits someone's house that used to not flood, now it floods. We're trying to be mindful of that. So the patterns you have right now are about 40%. But to answer your question in short, yes, anything that is not permeable.
Okay, so that would not include pier and beam.
That's correct.
That would not include above the ground decks.
You could calculate that out. Yes, ma'am. And same
Okay.
with swimming pools. You could do a certain percentage. You would say, well, that's 50%. Because you're going to have capture rate with it.
I have a question about your bunkhouses.
Yes, ma'am.
When you say 600 square feet or 800 square feet, are you talking about minimum size or maximum size?
These would be your maximum buildable size by right. It doesn't mean they couldn't come before a policy board, either planning commission or the city council, and be granted the ability to build bigger if there was circumstances that would allow for it. So we're providing allowances that are not variances, but they're called warrants. It's meeting the intent of the code, but not the letter of the law of the code. It provides you a little bit of leeway that they can come and say, well, we'd like to build 817 square feet because of the architectural style that we're trying to do. Well, they're over by 17 feet. That could be a city administrator to say, well, that's less than 10% variation if you all want to grant him that. And then he would say, well, I can make that call. 817 feet's lower than 10% variation. And if it's 900 square feet, then they would come and ask the council if you went with 800.
So you're recommending 800, 850?
800 would be fine, 850. This is really, this is one of those numbers we feel is pretty arbitrary, and we look to the decision makers that would provide us that. We'll go back and calculate it, and we'll run the numbers back through to make sure that it's not creating any other issues. We don't believe 850, 800 would cause any issues at all.
Thank you. Tony?
I have a few questions. So, once you go an inch, people will take a mile. So if it's 817, if that's 17, we could make it to where if that's 17 square feet, doesn't make their overall coverage of their lot more than 40%, then it's an okay. But
Yes, ma'am.
because if they have the space on their lot, then we should allow some variances. If they have a tiny little house and then they want to, and they've got nothing else on their property, whereas somebody else trying to build it, when they're cramming, they've got so much property, so much built on their little property. So that would be one thing. But one thing you said earlier that made me question, you said investment, and if I don't quote you correctly, please correct me. Investment homes would not be allowed to do additional structures.
Yes.
So what would you see that as if I bought an investment home? I bought an investment home that already had one, that already had a bunkhouse. Now it becomes my investment home. It's got 2 structures. I'm not planning on living on the property. That's an illegal use of the bunkhouse.
You could rent it out to you could rent the entire property out. You wouldn't be able to rent the 2 units separately or have one as an Airbnb.
So it falls under that single family kind of concept.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
And the intent is to not overwhelm Bandera with investors. And so, we heard that quite a bit through the public engagement process. That investors are coming in, buying structures. We didn't want to incentivize that. And if you don't have provisions like that, it's possible that they can say, oh, well, now I can go buy that lot and build 2, and I'm going to double my profit, and it could be problematic. We're trying to strike this balance. And one of the other things I'd love to state is that this isn't static. These things need to be, they need to evolve. They need to have conversations like this.
Right.
None of the parameters or the policy stuff that we're doing is abstract. These are real, human settlements, people's houses that we're talking about, their investments, one of their biggest investments. And so the thought is that we can create a balance that's not going to generate investors coming in, but to stabilize the economy where people can have a backyard house, generate a little bit of income on that house and maybe rent it out. Maybe they're doing an Airbnb in their house, in their back house, but they're on site to monitor the noise or whoever the renters are, those types of things. And so that's the other reason, is you get some ownership built into the standards or your toolkit.
So if we were to make the maximum square feet 800 feet, not to exceed, and then what was the phrase that you said about what was it you called it?
Owner-occupied?
Like the buildings to land, like
Oh, the lot coverage.
the lot coverage. Okay, not to exceed 40% lot coverage. If we were to allow that, as opposed to, ideally 650 square feet would be great, but Laura made some good points in her email. So if we truly are trying to allow these to be multi-generational properties, then I would like to see us entertain something like that, like a maximum of 800, but only if they have the space for it, because I don't want to see high density property, especially in what we're now considering our single family dwellings, our single family zones, because I know that the people that have lived there for years have been having the biggest issue with the Airbnbs and vacation rentals. So, thank you. That's all I have.
Jerry? So question, so are you saying to limit the, or to set a lot size, a minimum lot size that would allow for those 2 buildings?
Not a lot size. They have a lot size. So say they have a lot that's this piece of paper, right? And if their house takes up half of it, then they don't qualify for an 800 square feet because they're already over the 50% coverage line. If they have a house that's 30%, then we're saying maximum is 800, but they could come to us and ask for it, and we could allow that up to a 40% coverage. I mean, and have a set precedence where, it doesn't sound like we're just allowing it for our friends, but actually have intent behind what we're allowing and what's in the code.
I think that makes sense.
Rebecca?
I have a question about kind of what Tony brought up. If you have existing property owners who have multiple dwellings and are renting them both, so would they be existing non-conforming, and those would not need to come into compliance until the sale of a property? So they would be allowed to continue to operate as they are presently. operating? Is that the idea?
Typically,
it
that's
could
how you
be-
handle it. I mean, that is a policy decision, but generally you would leave them legal non-conforming. I don't know if your lawyer is here, but I mean, there's provisions. You could set a sunset clause on it and to say, well, you have about 3 years, and that provision gets sunset. Or you could, say it's in perpetuity until a transfer of land or a change of use. There's a variety of mechanisms that could set your trigger for compliance.
Tony had her hand up first.
I think the issue, and I could be wrong on the thought that Rebecca had, is that we have people that are currently non-conforming in the they're in an R1 district, and they've got 2 houses, and they're using one of them as a vacation rental, which under most people's definition of single-family zone, that's not legal, and it shouldn't be happening today. So we wouldn't have a legal non-conforming if they were doing what they were supposed to do today. But they've never been told not to. So that kind of puts us in a precarious situation in that, because it just hasn't been something that's boiled to the top to be managed. And nobody seems to want to tackle those, even though they've been complained about quite often. In just very specific areas of town, not all town, yeah,
So their structure would now be a legal non-conforming structure. And in state law, you've got legal non-conforming uses, legal non-conforming structures. And so depending on, this really be a good city attorney question. I'm not an attorney, but there's a differentiation between those two. And I think you all have the ability to make that determination.
okay, thank you.
Jerry?
So what occurs whenever it is non-conforming? Say that property is sold and somebody new is coming in and it's now non-conforming. What's the remedy? What's the solution? What do you do?
If
What's going to happen?
So let's say that right now you have a absentee owner that has 2 structures
That's
and
what
is
I was
renting
talking about.
both structures out. Well, if someone comes in and buys the property as a one owner, they now have the ability, that would become conforming. Now that structure would now be a legal structure that they could rent out, because there'd be one ownership with 2 structures on the lot.
If they were living there.
If
If they were living, if they were
Correct.
residing on site,
Have to reside on site.
they'd have to reside on
But
site.
if they weren't, tell me again.
Then
Can't do it.
they would not be allowed to rent that structure out. That legal non-conforming status at that point, I believe, would go away.
You could rent one structure at a time or all of it at a time, but never the 2 of them to 2 different
Separately.
people,
That's correct,
unless they live there.
unless you live on site.
Darcy?
Just leave my chicken coop alone. That's all I ask.
Nobody wants to.
Leave my chickens alone. I love my chickens, just leave them alone. Thank you.
Council, any other questions for Matt? Thank you, Matt. I think you've heard all of our
Was that the
concerns.
end?
Just on the bunkhouse.
That was just on the budget.
Okay,
We're not done.
Yeah.
yeah, okay.
So
Motion to adjourn?
consensus with 800 square foot on the bunkhouse is what I'm hearing.
Yeah.
Yes. And that's a max, not a min.
Correct.
That's the maximum, yes ma'am.
But then I think we need a lot coverage percentage too. Do
I
we
like
have
the
one that
40.
would suggest on what's currently conforming?
40% would
40%.
provide quite a bit of leeway. We found houses that have 10% coverage to 36, but not exceeding 40. That was why we went with that recommendation. And that's, again, only in that zone. So in place type 3, the lot coverage is 40, and once it goes higher, then your coverage goes up. For example, the lots downtown are generally 80 to 100% impervious cover, lot coverage, and so that will go up. Yes, sir.
But that's P5.
P5, that's outside of
Totally
conversation.
different,
Yes,
right.
ma'am.
Do you have a map that in this presentation that that we can see the P1s, 3s, 5s?
I don't, not in this presentation,
Okay,
ma'am.
all right.
Sorry.
I should have brought it with me.
You don't have it memorized?
I don't have it
Yes,
memorized.
I think the mayor has it. Just,
That 40%, that's based upon our current situation. Is there any recommendations or guidelines or standards for?
Yes, generally, so the city of Austin, and most of the cities use 50% impervious cover for typical residentials. There are lots scales much smaller. For example, So in a dense city, you know, their lot standards are 5750 in 5,750 feet. And you go into Round Rock, they have 6,000 square foot lots, and so I think theirs is 50% as well. And in some rural areas, it could be lower, you know. So really, those are the things that we really tailor to the community, just to make sure that we're capturing, not overwhelming the character, if you will. And so this again, I mean, that could be if 40 ends up being too low for some reason, or if you all are hitting that once these units start getting constructed, we don't think that you're going to have a large takedown of these. You may have one or two pop up, and you know, this would be a really good thing to maintain as permits are getting pulled for these, so you keep an inventory, so that you understand your water, wastewater, stormwater impacts as this starts to happen. You know, but we don't see this. We don't believe you're going to get overwhelmed with these, and particularly with these level of provisions. These are going to be homeowners that have a little bit of wealth, or you know, that are ready for an extra unit, or you know, something like that.
Thank you. Rebecca?
And again, if they build pier and beam, then it's not gonna impact the lot coverage.
Council? Think we got this figured out? I do have one quick question.
Yes, ma'am.
Let's say I have a 6,000 square foot lot, and 40% would be 2,400 square feet. My home is 1,200 square feet. Can I build two 600 square foot structures on my lot?
No.
As
Okay.
long as if it's exceeding the 40%, that's going to put you over. That would be over your 40%, I think. So,
Well, 12
you're saying, if your 2,400 square foot house
Yeah,
is gone.
No, I've got a 1,200 square foot house and two 600 square foot bunkhouses.
Two accessory. We've only written one.
One is,
We've only allowed for one. You can do
Okay,
a
I just want to
two-story,
clarify that.
and then the two-story would be. We wrote the standards where you would allow a two-story bunkhouse, but it still couldn't. So it could be 400 square feet per floor
Got it.
in this scenario.
Thank you. Anything else, council? Matt, you think you heard everything you needed to hear?
Lot
He's
sizes.
got more
Never
done.
on lot
I
sizes.
just have
You trying to rush things?
I'll go quick. So the lot sizes, generally y'all's lot sizes are 8,000 square feet. That's the town lot dimensions. You have a lot of them. There have been some that have been subdivided. In place type 3, we're trying to not make equal standards, so we did not want to come back in and recommend 4,000 square feet so that people could come in and subdivide those two 8,000s into two 4,000s, and that'd start to change the character of the town. We came back and made a recommendation of 6,000 square feet to the council. You all wanted some additional time to consider this, and so we're back before you all to get resolution. A 6,000 square foot lot in a typical setting is a generic lot size that tract home builders use. It's they use either 60 by 100s, they'll do 50 by 100s, or 40 by 100s. That's their general product that you'll see. Your smallest lot size in this district is 3,600 square feet. So we think that's too small, but to protect the rural feel that you all are establishing. So we think that as this time, 6,000 is a logical number, and it should be evaluated as you go forward. We don't think that it's going to trigger a bunch of re-subdivisions and tearing houses down, that type of thing. Because of the parameters. You also have vacant lots in town, so if you have 6,000 square foot lots, you can start to imagine maybe how they may develop out with that standard. It's not out of character, but it's one additional house, two additional houses per block potentially. You know, that scale of infill. So.
Rebecca?
Do you have a place type map handy?
that's what I just asked. I
Oh,
just
you
sent
did?
I just sent
I
the
didn't
link
put
to
it in
Jill. I
here,
don't know
I'm
if she
sorry.
can get it
Hang on.
to the Bitly.
I was trying to read your lips. It wasn't.
I know. Kristen, it's down. It's,
Where is it now?
You hungry?
there
Sorry.
it is on the right
There
hand
it is,
side.
there it is.
Scroll on the right hand side.
Right
Draft
there.
comprehensive plan. Yeah, there you go. No, I sent it to you because I was trying to download it on my phone and I
I
couldn't
mean, I
get
have
it.
it. Is there a particular parcel? I have it here if you want to see it. You want to look at it at this scale?
So we're talking about the the lot size in place type 3 only
Yes,
right
ma'am.
now?
That's
Okay.
correct.
Yeah, sorry.
And it's this light blue color. It's these lots out here, and then it's generally this area right here.
So P3 is the equivalent of what our R1 is now with a couple of changes,
Yes,
am I
ma'am.
correct?
That's correct. R1, RM.
So it's kind of the green, so those, it's sort of the green areas in here.
Yeah.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. So just curious, are we considering smaller lot sizes in place type, what,
4.
4?
Yes, ma'am. Once you go into place type 4, majority of your lots are smaller, and this would be where your workforce housing could happen. It's where you could build townhomes, work units,
Okay.
and so yes, it is smaller lot sizes would be
Hold
encouraged
the
in that
control
area.
key down and click it. I don't know if it'll work, but it might. Not opening a new tab or something. I think it was preventing pop-ups. I could be wrong. Oh, maybe not. Yeah, I don't know, I couldn't get it to work either from my phone, but I figured it
But
was.
that's all you
Okay,
needed
so-
to cover tonight was place type 3,
Yes,
and your recommendation is 6,000.
yes, ma'am.
I don't know. I'm really bad with, I don't know how big that is. I can't picture it.
60 by 100.
60 by 100.
That really knows it down, somebody that doesn't know that.
It's like telling me north.
It's
I
the
don't know which
average
directions are.
here when you drive by.
And if you all wanted to stick with 8,000, the issue with having lot sizes, this is a plating requirement. The other items, when you're talking about building, building requirements, there's waivers and allowances that you all have this ability to make decisions. When you set your lot standards, that's your subdivision ordinance. And if they meet your minimum subdivision ordinance, by state law, you can't deny it. And so it's not one of the items you're going to want to be modifying and fluctuating on. It needs to be a set standard. And if you all are more comfortable with 8,000 to stick with what you have, it's going to preclude those lots from being subdivided, but it's going to ensure that as any infill lots happen, they're going to be in the same configuration as the existing lots. And so it's not
And then the
a
ones that are less than that would be legal nonconformist until sold. I mean, well, I guess they're gonna be that way forever.
forever.
My thought is, I'm sorry.
Yes, Darcy.
My thought is, we paid this group a whole lot of money and they know what they're doing. I mean, he has a pretty snazzy hat. So, my thought is to go with
For those that don't know, Darcy gave him the hat.
Yeah.
But yeah, so now you're in the joke, now you're inside the joke.
But then it's not polite to wear them inside, is it?
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. My inclination is to go with their recommendation. I mean, they know what they're talking about and have reasons why. So my inclination is to go with their recommendation.
Thanks, Darcy.
Can you give me the acreage of 6,000 square foot? Is it, tell me, sorry, I should know this, but is it
56,000
Let's
is
see.
the total, so
Are you
divide
trying
by
to,
6,000.
Do it like
6,000 for 1
acre?
acre?
No,
No.
56,000 and then change is 1 acre. So divide 6,000, or the 56 by 6,000, and that'll tell you how many lots you can get in 1 acre.
But it's close to that. I thought it was
It's 43,560.
43560?
Yeah.
Right,
Yeah, 43,560.
thank you.
6,000.
Divided by 6,000.
7.2.
So, what kind of, sorry,
She's mapping.
Or
That's okay.
56.
Is that what you're looking
Letter
for?
math.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Give me a second.
It'd be 7 units an acre.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
that's,
7.26.
Jules has a good, she saw some of us falling asleep.
that's what I was wondering.
Wake up.
Tony.
So, okay, so, it's not
Okay.
even that
Here's
I
what
have
I
an
got.
issue with reducing the lot size and making it a little more friendly to people that are purchasing and more, but my biggest concern, I think, is that we already know that our pipes and our sewers and our water system is not mapped out. So if we start replatting and start allowing smaller lot sizes on things that we don't even know, I mean, what kind of can of worms are we opening up in that side of town or in the green area, which is a major part of our town, that we don't really have any knowledge of. I mean, we know that the last building that was destroyed here in town, there was a main line that went diagonally across that lot. I mean, it was not even on a map, and it caused a huge main break. And so, I know, love those looks. That's what we do all the time. Like, exactly, like, what? So, but it's real. I mean, it's real. And so if we start allowing lot sizes to be reduced, I mean, what kind of can of worms are we, before we have a handle on the rest of it? You know what I'm saying? It's like,
We had a meeting
This is the size
last
of my
week, I
lot.
believe, with the engineers, with Derek and Jonathan Tiefenteller, and Jonathan somebody else from Ardura. And they're working diligently to get all this stuff on GIS and figure this out for us so we can move forward. However, as you said, we're not there right now. And we've had all sorts of things happen, like on that side of the street and this side of the street.
So-
To say nothing of the clay sewer pipes we still have over here.
right.
So yes, it is a concern,
So
but
I don't think it's something, I mean, maybe we do it in a phase, or maybe we know when this project is sort of gonna come to resolution, and then we allow an opportunity to replat at a lower size, but we do it at that time, and then make that the set. Don't keep, like Matt said, don't keep moving it. Know what we're gonna do, but let's do it methodically, because, I mean, our Department of Public Works is struggling, and I'd hate for us to replat something and cause things that we just don't need to deal with. So, that's my thought.
And just so you know, either way
Yeah, I
that
was
you
just
go, you will have
trying
legal
to help put it
non-conforming
into
lots,
perspective
because
a
you do
little
have
bit here.
smaller lots than 8,000 square feet in that
0.32.
district,
Right.
just so you all know.
Yeah, we just replatted some fairly recently, and that was the one of the 13, however many we've had since 1912. Give or take a few years.
Rebecca.
So Tony, your lot is about half an acre. So you're like over 20,000 square feet on your lot.
Which one? I have 3
I'm
lots.
sorry, your residence.
My
And
residence.
mine is about 14,000 square feet.
And then the one that I have at Pecan and 8th is like a quarter of a block. That's the one that was in my family, my grandmother's family forever.
Oh,
Across
yeah.
from mine, diagonal from
Yeah,
mine.
yeah.
So that, I don't know what that, I
But
don't know
then
what
there's
those are.
one back here that's 0.16. So I just wanted to point out the 6,000 square feet is 0.1377 acres.
Right.
And there are some of those
And that's,
around, but
Yes, that's like 2.
Very small.
that's
Yeah,
Now,
small.
ready to go back to your presentation, or was there any other slides you wanted to
That
show?
is
so each block of town, if you divide it by 8, that's the 0.6 whatever, right? 0.6.
The original.
1, 2, 3,
Yeah.
4.
Like,
So-
like if you had a
Suzanne.
block with the original
No,
platting of broken.
0.32.
0.32
0.32.
is an eighth of a block. Okay.
Yeah.
Darcy. Yes, Jill.
I think we're off topic. We're talking about individual people's lot sizes.
And she's
Yeah,
giving it
we're
as an
trying to get a
example.
reference
He's
of
giving a
what.
presentation.
Oh, no, okay.
Okay,
Isn't this what
okay,
you
we're-
wanted?
Yes, ma'am, yeah.
We're getting a
I'm sorry.
reference of what we're talking about
Yeah,
here.
for the lot sizes.
Yeah.
But
the
I
lot
think that
sizes.
Tony's idea of let's get this thing in place and then address it when we know more about what we're actually
And
having to deal with.
I'm all for moving forward with trying to come up with a consensus on our side of the table for the bunkhouse and the percentage of coverage. But when we get to replatting, I have a big caution
Yeah.
flag going on for that.
Then, are we ready to move on to the master thoroughfare and street network plan?
Sure.
So our direction is to leave it at 8,000 square feet?
So do we want to make an official motion?
We can't make a motion this is.
Oh, that's right.
No.
Okay, my bad.
We
So,
would love some direction though, if
The
you
consensus.
Yes, I think we're
8,000.
talking leaving the 8,000 square feet minimum at this point.
Okay.
And then 800 square feet for the bunkhouse at a 40% coverage for a total
Sounds
land
that's what I,
coverage
that's
Perfect.
of the lot.
Got it, thank you. The last item was the Thoroughfare Master Plan, and We just wanted to talk about the importance of this. Bandera was laid out in these patterns, and it feels and functions and is the way that it is because of the foresight of the community and the settlers that laid it out at that time. What we're seeing today throughout the United States are subdivision plats meeting the minimum standards, designing communities' infrastructure that meets their minimum standards. And generally what's happening is maximum lot yield. And so what you're getting is a disconnected network of streets with a maximum lot yield without understanding the impacts of connectivity. You all have been very fortunate to be residing into a grid which disseminates traffic, it's navigable, it's easy to use, the street names are easy to understand. But when I deal with some of my firefighter friends, and you take their GPS away and you send them into a series of loops and lollipops, cul-de-sac subdivisions with names that no one can pronounce, it's a very problematic situation if public safety, communication went down. Here, it's very easy to navigate. The intent with what we had done with the Thoroughfare Master Plan is to emulate the patterns that you all have into the area that you have statutory authority over. It's your extraterritorial jurisdiction. And we studied the landscape to see where it would receive or reject certain streets. We looked at the topography, we looked at existing development patterns. And the thought would be that as development occurs, if you had a street network, then the development community could build to these street networks. The smaller blocks that you see in red that are faded behind the boulder lines would be recommended blocks. They're not going to be the ones that would be mandatory. So what we did is we established the Bandera block, and the Bandera block is 335 feet by 335 feet with 55.5 to 60 feet of right-of-way. We just calibrated 60 feet of right-of-way. That's 790 feet. So those blocks are 790 feet by 790 feet by 790 feet by 790 feet. The thought would be that they could break them down into Bandera building blocks and build 335-foot blocks with 65 feet of right-of-way, and you could start to continue to emulate the patterns that you have. The only way that that happens is with a mandatory street network or a developer that comes in and is really excited about understanding the patterns that you have and utilizing that information for their tools going forward. What we believe is this provides you a solid foundation of a roadmap going forward, and it provides you the ability to have a conversation when development shows up, and you have the ability also to modify your Thoroughfare Master Plan. So if for some reason a development does show up and you all want to break your blocks and you want to allow for the street network not to be connected, you would have the ability to do that. Without this, though, you have no say in your street network as it gets developed. And that is why we believe this is one of the most fundamentally important tools for the community, and we are really excited to present this to you all. It is extremely important. So we just wanted, that was it. I just wanted to make sure that you are aware of that.
Darcy.
I agree, thank you, Matt. I agree.
I agree too. I think it's very important.
Alrighty then.
Thank you very much. We have direction. We'll be back in touch soon, and thanks. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank
Matt.
you, Matt.
Thanks, Matt. Okay, moving on. Item B, discussion of possible action approving a resolution joining with the state of Texas in the Texas opioid settlement agreement secured by the Office of the Attorney General. David, you brought this to us.
Yes, ma'am. Y'all may be aware about in 2018, a lot of cities got together and said, you know what, we spent a lot of money on emergency services, personnel responding, and the cities are not able to recoup that costs for multiple responses and so forth. So a lot of cities got together. They sued the pharmaceutical companies, saying that they were misleading customers on the dangers of opioids and people being addicted to opioids. So they sued them and they won. So our Attorney General, Ken Paxton, got a $26 billion agreement with some of the pharmaceutical companies. Some cities jumped on board initially when the lawsuit happened, but now they're asking if anybody else wants to jump on board in the city of Texas, or in the state of Texas, excuse me. So right now, they said 1 in 5 Texans have experienced an opioid overdose, or someone knows someone who has. The Texas Department of Health and Human Services reports for the nation's top 25 cities for opioid misuse are in Texas: Texarkana, Amarillo, Odessa, and Longview. So, long story short, they've settled with the drug companies have settled. And the number of cities that join the lawsuit per state, the state gets more money. So the more cities that join, the more money the state gets to distribute out to the cities to help recoup the cost for, like I said, law enforcement response, EMS response, and so forth. Because that money comes out of our city coffers, and we're not able to recoup it oftentimes. Yes.
Jerry?
Is there any negatives that we should consider? I can't think of any, and is there any cost involved down the road? Is there any potential cost?
There's
As
no
far
cost
as-
there's no cost that I'm aware of. The cost, of course, are the attorneys that are already taken, they're gonna take their cut, they're represented, in the lawsuit, but at the end of the day, once the money is the final, bottom line for the state of Texas, they will distribute it out. They have some kind of algorithm that I don't understand, but they would distribute out the money according to city sizes and amount of responses and so forth.
And David, if I may, I think the city of Bandera is looking at like $2,800, but it's still $2,800 we didn't have before
Right.
in their printout of what the other cities are going to get. Yes, Darcy?
I know that counties get involved with it as well, and also if, I'd like to see if you'd look into the tobacco, they have the same thing with tobacco, so if you wouldn't mind looking into that, but I'd like to make a motion. if I
Yes,
may.
ma'am, please.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the resolution joining with the state of Texas in the Texas opioid settlement agreement secured by the Office of the Attorney General.
Thank you.
Second.
Rebecca, seconds, discussion?
Just
Yes, ma'am.
like to thank you, David, for bringing that to our attention. Yes.
All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Item C, discussion of possible action approving a resolution to add David Jordan to all city bank accounts. Rebecca?
Move to approve resolution 2021-020, adding David Jordan to the city bank accounts.
Thank you. Jerry? Second.
Second that.
Discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. All right, items D, E, F, and G. These are all funding opportunities for our wastewater treatment plant. However, as with all of these different funding opportunities, we have to go through the engineering pre-procurement and the administration pre-procurement. So this is just council's authorization for us to send out RFPs and RFQs for these different funding opportunities. So with that being said, yes, Rebecca, I didn't even read it yet.
Oh, go right ahead, ma'am.
Thank you so much. Okay, item D, discussion and possible action approving the request for proposals for grant writing and administration for the Hazard Mitigation Grant Program through the Texas Department of Emergency Management to include preparation and submission of an applications and with funding administration of projects. Rebecca?
Move to approve the RFP for grant writing and administration.
Thank you, Jerry.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor? All in favor and opposed. E, same thing, discussion and possible action on approving the request for qualifications for engineering for the hazard mitigation, hazard mitigation grant program through the Texas Department of Emergency Management to assist in the development of an application including a benefit cost analysis, a cost estimate, scope of work, and required maps for the submission of an application and with funding design and construction oversight of projects. Rebecca?
Move to approve the RFQ for engineering services.
Thank you. Darcy, second. Discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Thank you, council. Item F, discussion and possible action on approving the request for proposals for grant writing and administration for the U.S. Government of Commerce Economic Development Administration, EDA, grant program to include preparation and submission of an application and with funding and administration of projects. Rebecca?
Move to approve the RFP for grant writing and administration for the
Thank you.
EDA program.
Darcy, second. Discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. Item G, discussion and possible action on approving the request for qualifications for engineering for the U.S. Department of Commerce Economic Development Administration, EDA, grant program to assist in the development of an application including a project engineering report, a cost estimate, scope of work and required maps for the submission of an application and with funding, design, and construction oversight of the project. Rebecca?
Move to approve the RFQ for engineering for the EDA grant.
Thank you. Sherry, second.
I'll second that.
Discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. All right, item H. Discussion on actively recruiting members for the Planning and Zoning Commission.
I brought this up, put on the agenda because as we see in the master plan coming through, we're getting ready to make a lot of major decisions, and a lot of these decisions require a planning and zoning commission review and recommendation to the city council. In the process of reviewing the planning and zoning, I understand that there are potentially 7 positions, 5 for a full board and 2 alternates, and we currently have 3 people on the board right now, and some of them are not active. So let's just bring this to the council for them and the citizens, if you're interested, to know that we need people on the planning and zoning commission so they can be trained up, help make decisions to bring to the city council for consideration.
Sherry?
Is just a question out there, is there any reason that city council can't be on that?
Not the entire
5
city council.
well,
I wouldn't recommend
or-
the entire city council, that's not,
Okay.
that's not possible. You can't have no more than 2, but
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
that's why I was wondering.
In a, if I may, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that our attorney has said that in a type A general law city, that the council can also function as the Planning and Zoning Commission. The only thing we cannot, because we're already the Board of Adjustment, Board of Appeals, however, we cannot function as the Economic Development Corporation.
Right.
However, I don't think, again, as David pointed out, it's not the greatest idea that we be the all, everything. And again, it's a very small committee, we have the same core of folks who want to get involved in everything. It's not a paying job, but it's so important for what Bandera is looking to do. Rebecca?
Okay, sorry, I'm looking online for the entire codes of ordinances because I was curious to know what the qualifications are presently set for the PNC. Because recently we had adjusted the EDC requirements to
Match the state.
match
Yeah.
the statutory limitations.
Look at chapter 1.
You can't even get it online. There's, there's
Chapter
no
one.
link to the entire.
Chapter 1, boards and commissions.
This is, yeah.
Well,
It's not. Normally under doing business codes and ordinances, you can click to pull up the entire, Franklin legal.
Can you
The
just pull
whole-
up chapter 1?
Hold on, Jill's got it. Oh,
Yeah.
thank you, it was hiding.
Chapter 1, boards and
Okay.
commissions.
Thank you, Jill.
Oh, hold on.
That's what I was looking
Hi, y'all.
No, Jill. Back over there.
Boards and committees.
Okay, planning and zoning, there you go.
Living,
Make this
breathing.
bigger.
Living, breathing, walking,
Miss Pat
talking.
and Miss Donna.
5 members with 2 alternates.
3 of the 5 members must be a current resident, citizen of the city and current registered voter. 1 of the remaining members may be a current registered voter of the county and a current resident of the ETJ of the city. The remaining members shall be a current resident and registered voter, the city, or the ETJ. The alternates must be current registered voters of the county, current resident of the county.
So we currently
I
have
still
one
have the
city
full
resident.
debate.
Okay, let's let Rebecca finish.
All I would ask, and I'm happy to do this in requests for future agenda items, is that we review the statutory limitations and consider whether we want to make this, to open this up, if possible, to not put the limitations on it that are presently there, so we can accommodate whoever wants to.
Is that a motion? Do we need a second?
It's not a motion,
not really
it's
just-
just consideration for a future agenda.
I think that's
And I'm happy to request it under 6A.
Thank you. Remember that previously we had business owners who lived in the county but owned a business in town on the board, so,
Yeah, we added a bunch of rules
We did
to
all kinds
keep
of
people
stuff.
off,
or
you know.
on. Anyway, thank you. More discussion on the Planning and Zoning Commission?
I'll just put that out there, so we could encourage y'all to recruit as a council. And
Thank you.
if the citizens are interested in volunteering or know somebody, or,
We have no officers currently.
okay, it says they have no officers currently on the P and Z, planning and zoning, so,
Yeah, we don't even meet the minimum requirement at this point. We have
That's
one
okay.
city residence and 2 county residents. One county has a business in the county and one county has a business in the city, but we've got,
okay, so that's why I'm bringing it to the conversation to the table so we can recruit.
Thank you. Jerry?
That was the reason I was bringing up allowing city council on, because we're not really even functioning at this point with 3 people. And I'm not normally for city council being on the other boards, but just
you.
function in this case.
thank you for volunteering, Jerry. Do we need a motion?
Come on down. All right, ready to move on? All right, council. Item A, request by council to place items on the agenda. I believe Rebecca has already made her desire clear. I would like to state again that on 9/21, we will be having the annual report unless something comes up from Best Western as well as the marketing plan from Best Western, unless we, of course, get bogged down. Anyone else?
Are we on requests or are we on announcements?
Request by council to place items on an agenda, number A. Anything else? Item B, announcements. Tony?
There's several important things happening in our community this weekend. American Legion Community Breakfast honoring the 20th anniversary of 9/11 at the American Legion Hall. It's from, I believe, 8 to 12. And then there's a Ride and Rise benefit, which this is the 6th annual. This year it's going to be held at Mansfield Park. It's kind of an all-day thing. The ride starts at like 8:30, and they come in around 12:30 or 1, and then there's an auction that happens around 2 or 2:30. And they've got music and stuff that's going to last until 8:30. But the importance of this is the goal is to put at least one veteran or first responder through the Warriors Heart program for somebody that doesn't have the ability or the insurance or whatever to pay for that themselves. And so I think it's been very successful, and it gets bigger every year. And I think that's,
And I just want to reinforce that it's an amazing program. I've met some of the beneficiaries of fair funding.
this benefit, yeah.
It's amazing. It really is.
And they had them come and speak, and you know it's very moving. I went last year, and it was a really great event.
Well, I've gone every year but last year, so.
Yeah. You were there last year with the new
Was I there?
owners of Kickback. Yeah,
Yep.
you were.
Oh, I
What was
was.
the-
That
That
was
was
the year
Saturday.
before that I
Oh,
was.
Saturday,
9/11.
both these.
Which is 9/11. Yeah, both
Okay,
of them.
another thing coming up on September the 18th, I know we're a little bit ahead of ourselves, but that's the 20th anniversary for Boys and Girls Club. It's an all-day event of food, games, auction, silent auction. It's going to be a big thing, and I've seen such great response from the community on their messenger page. It's amazing.
Location.
Yeah, there's been a lot of support this year.
Location.
At the
Boys and Girls Club,
September 18th.
And they're accepting donations. What day?
yes, they are.
The 18th.
September 18th, all day long.
What?
Yes, Christine?
The bike rally's coming up October 1st through the 3rd, and Biker Rallies of Texas will be providing free of charge COVID vaccinations, first shot of Johnson & Johnson vaccination, and the Moderna and the Pfizer booster vaccinations free of charge to anyone at the rally. They will also be offering this to citizens of Bandera County. There will be a vaccination station set up at the registration trailer with registered nurses to administer. So it's not required to have one to get in, but they're offering that as a public service during the rally.
I heard he was trying to get that done, but I didn't
Yeah,
know that
it's
happened.
I didn't know Bill had
It's been
accomplished it yet.
It's been announced, and there'll be further details as we get closer to that, but that will be happening out there.
Thank you. Any other announcements, council? David, Jill, you?
Well,
Actually,
I would like to bring out our
announcement.
Deputy Brett Oberlackner. He is our newest deputy marshal. He just hasn't been on duty for any council meetings. He's been with us for about a little over a month now. So
Welcome.
Thank
But we
you.
got a brief smile, he went straight after that.
This is my smile.
All right, council, anything further?
That's it. Move
Yeah.
to adjourn.
Amen.
Thank you, Tony. Jerry, second, discussion? All in favor? All in favor, none opposed. 6:59.